everyone, welcome to On the Other Hand. I'm Ariane Zurcher, and today I'm going to be discussing the creative process. Hit the like button, don't forget to subscribe, click on that bell for email notifications, talk to me, leave comments in the comment section, and don't forget to check out the description section. I talk about my own design career and past with some other things that might be of interest, as well as links to all the different things that I use within this video. If you'd like to share these videos, please feel free to do so. Let's start creating. Last week I talked about creating anyway. I was whip stitching these circles down. This is a project that I'm doing. I'm not even sure what it's going to be. Maybe a bag, maybe a pillow. I kind of started thinking of it as a tote bag. I was going to add something perhaps to the upper and lower sections. I had smaller circles where these larger ones were. I switched them out and I whip stitched everything down. And so the question then becomes, and now what? That can be a scary question because, this is when suddenly all the chores start to call out to you that need to get done and take precedence over this. When I feel at a loss or am not sure where I'm going next, I often will pull out a sketchbook and just start sketching some ideas. So this is Sue Spargo's book. I have lots of circles here, lots of circle ideas, and I keep drawing them, and I'm going to continue. I'm just going to take one circle and I'm just going to draw a couple of different ideas out. And then I'm going to pick out some threads. And if I'm lucky and I have time, I'll even start to stitch something. So my first circle I'm going to do is this big pink one right here. And then I'm going to do the smaller circle on the inside here. And then I think I want to do some sort of couched something around the outer edge. And I think maybe I do some bouillon knots to couch it. And then for this circle, I want something that sticks out. I don't know what. And I'll figure that stitch out I'll figure out what this stitch is once I get to it. Then I also want something coming in here. And maybe what I want to do is, so if I'm couching all of this with my bouillons, maybe I do a tête de bout going in like this. Now, another thing I can do is I can do a Italian knotted border stitch and just make it huge and have my knot here. That can be really cool looking. That also leaves me room to do something in here if I want. And if I do it in a thick enough thread, it can be pretty striking. And maybe that's what I end up doing instead of this idea, which is maybe better for the smaller circle. These probably need to be a little bit smaller. In here, well, I could do a pistol stitch out like this. And then in here, I could couch something again. I could couch a big piece of fabric. I could couch a ribbon. I could ruche something, or doing little flies. I could do little flies in here like this with the stems coming in. Okay, and then maybe I don't do the pistils. And I think I need a little air in here. So I remove those. Maybe I do a open buttonhole filler stitch in the round, going around here like this, but not filled completely in and stopping right there. And then maybe I could do a cast on bouillon here like this. And maybe I do a cast on bouillon on this side too. And maybe instead of the cast on here, I do the cast ons around there. And then I do something emanating out from these like that. So I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, I don't know if any of that's good. These are big circles, so this may be really overwhelming. But the bigger point is just to start doing something. Sometimes when it's a bigger project, it's helpful to map it out a little bit more. But sometimes you can just wing it and go with it. When I'm working on these circles, which I do one every day, some of them come together really quickly, and then others do not. And it can even be a struggle. But the important thing is for me to just keep going and keep working, trusting myself, trusting the process. So this is one of the circles that I did. And This is it's an EZM 15, a variegated eleganza thread. And then I did this cast-on bouillon, and I think now this needs to have a cast-on bouillon too. So let me show you that. You can see an example of this being done. This is my number 8 weight EZM 28 thread. It has a slight variegation to it, but it's pretty subtle. I'm going to do my quilter's knot. So this is the circle. I just think it needs to have a little cast-on around the edge here. So let me do that. I think an 8 wrap will work. The other thing is to just do something every day. I find that the daily practice of sitting and stitching is incredibly helpful. The process is not as scary if I do this every day because I become used to the discomfort of not knowing how something's going to turn out. I become used to the discomfort of having an idea not work and taking it out and starting something else. And I think one of the things about process is that it's not always comfortable. In fact, often it's quite uncomfortable. But if I can get somewhat inured to it, if I can become so used to it that it does lessen the discomfort. These cast-ons were needed, that it didn't feel totally finished. And sometimes that's what happens. I mean, I made this circle over a week ago, and I've been thinking about it, and I feel like it's been calling to me, finish me, I'm not done. See, doesn't that look better? It does. It needed that. It needed to be finished. And it wasn't. I don't feel agitated now when I see it. Another thing is, when I first started doing this kind of work, a lot of people told me what I couldn't do. So I remember I had seen a finished quilt that was done by Sue Spargo, and it was all machine quilted in the background. And it was really beautifully done with these lovely little patterns. And of course, the work that Sue had done was gorgeous. And when I designed my first wool piece, I wanted to machine quilt it, but I was told that I couldn't. I was told by machine quilters that just couldn't be done. And so I hand quilted the whole thing, and it was small, so it wasn't a big deal. But I didn't like the way it looked. I really had wanted it to be machine quilted, and that's how I had envisioned it. Well, when I finally met Sue, I talked to her about that, and she sort of smiled and said, yep, because until Sue had started doing this kind of work, nobody had seen it before. And so a lot of free motion quilters just thought, no, I'm not getting near that. How am I going to do that? And now it's become more and more something that a lot of people are doing, and many people are machine quilting their pieces. And so I free motion quilt all of my own now. But it's an example of people saying things to you, telling you you can't do that. When someone says you can't do that, I immediately think, try it, do it, see what happens. I mean, how do they know? Have they tried it? And if they have, maybe they didn't have a good experience with it, but that doesn't mean that you won't be able to do it. So I think it's important to some degree, ignore the rules. Now, there are other rules that are come by through hard work and experience, and those are good to listen to, because why reinvent, the wheel if you don't have to? I remember when I was whip stitching a wool circle down, and I didn't have the exact color wool thread applique thread to whip stitch it down, and Sue Spargo told me, always go with a lighter color because it fades in and your eye doesn't notice it, whereas if you go with a darker shade of thread to whip stitch that wool down, it's going to create almost a shadow. And I thought, well, I don't know, this wool looks so much better and it's much closer in color, but it was slightly darker. And so I did it, and she was right. It cast a shadow, and I took the whole thing out and I redid it with this much lighter wool that didn't seem to match at all, certainly not as well as the other one, and it completely disappeared. And by the time I had finished doing all my stitching to it, you didn't notice that at all. So there's an example of listening to someone who knows and is more experienced and deciding, okay, they've done this and they've done it a lot more than I have, and so let me learn from their experience. But I do find that often people will say, you can't do that, or you shouldn't, this, or, those colors don't work. And I think often it's good to just ignore them and do what you like. Because if you like it, then it's right. And chances are someone else will like it too. So I have too much for one, and I'm going to do two little ones. They're smaller than what I've been doing, but that's okay. It'll all blend in and work out. And there's my last one. And this one is pretty little, so I think I'll do probably 7 or even 6 wraps instead of 8. No one will notice it when it's finished. So there it is, and that definitely, to me anyway, definitely finishes it. And again, I did that circle at least a week ago, and I thought it was finished, and then you come back and it kept calling to me, and I listened, and I'm much happier with that. I think part of this creative process is really to let go and to I have to allow myself to feel discomfort and to be okay with that. And that's taken a long time to be okay with, but it definitely helps. I hope you found this helpful, and I appreciate you watching. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Don't forget to click on that bell for email notifications. Talk to me, give me comments in the comments section. I love hearing from you. And check out the description section. That's where I'll leave the wool, where you can get the wool and threads. And until next time, here's to creating together.